Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. The world woke up to shockwaves. Israel had struck Iranian military targets deep within the region, and for the first time in a long time, they were trying to hide it. No more covert ops. No more whispers in back channels. This was loud, clear and unmistakable. In a rare move, Israel publicly acknowledged its involvement in these airstrikes. They didn't just hint or leak it to the press, they owned it. Why? Because the stakes have never been higher. They claimed these targets were part of an Iranian plot to launch coordinated attacks against Israeli and U.S. personnel in Syria. Let that sink in. This wasn't just an act of defense. It was a message, a warning shot across the bow, a calculated display of force intended to neutralize a threat before it could become a catastrophe. And yet, the real bombshell is not the strike itself, but what followed, because Iran didn't stay silent. Of course not. Tehran responded with fury, issuing chilling threats of retaliation. State officials declared that Israel would face the consequences of its aggression. But here's the twist: Israel seems completely unfazed, almost calm, as if they were waiting for this reaction. They've bolstered their defenses across the Syrian border. They've deployed Iron Dome batteries, increased drone surveillance, and ramped up their intelligence operations. Every step signals, we're ready. Come at us if you must. But here's where things get really interesting and dangerous. Multiple high-level sources have confirmed that this was not Israel acting alone. Behind these strikes was something much bigger. A joint operation. Israel, the United States, and likely several regional partners worked together, quietly, efficiently, ruthlessly. This wasn't a solo mission. It was a coalition strike. Intelligence sharing played a central role. From satellite imagery to on-the-ground human intelligence, each country brought critical data to the table. Together, they identified exact coordinates, structural layouts, enemy presence, and planned the perfect time to hit. And it worked, too well. Iran was caught completely off guard. Reports suggest that the precision and timing of the strike exposed critical gaps in Iran's defensive capabilities. Some say Iran had grown overconfident, believing that Israel wouldn't dare strike at this moment, maybe due to global scrutiny or rising tensions elsewhere. They were wrong. Now, Iranian leadership is scrambling to understand how their positions were so thoroughly compromised. Was it faulty intel? Was it internal sabotage? Or was it just a major miscalculation? Whatever the reason, this moment exposes a massive vulnerability in Iran's military infrastructure, and that could change the course of this entire shadow war. Now, pause here for a moment. What we're witnessing isn't just an isolated military action. It's a turning point in a conflict that's been simmering for years, fought not in open fields, but in alleyways, air corridors, and digital landscapes. A war of spies, drones, assassinations, and proxy militias. The real danger now. Escalation. The fear is real. The risk of open warfare between two of the region's most powerful forces, backed by competing superpowers, has never been greater. And yet, surprisingly, there are hints that neither side actually wants all-out war. Think about this: why would Israel openly claim responsibility for the strikes? One theory says they wanted to send a message strong enough to deter Iran from retaliating. By saying, we did this, and we'll do it again. Israel might be trying to make Iran think twice, to stop this before it turns into a firestorm. And Iran, so far, their response has been limited to rhetoric, threats, saber-rattling, no missile launch strikes, no airstrikes, no retaliation. Yet, could it be that Iran also wants to avoid escalation? Both nations have a lot to lose. Israel faces growing internal dissent and the pressure of constant conflict. Iran is struggling with economic sanctions, internal protests, and fractured political unity. A war would drain resources and ignite chaos that neither country may be able to control. Still, the risk remains, because once missiles start flying, things can spiral fast. And this shadow war, this quiet war in the background, could suddenly explode into the headlines. To understand how close we are to that edge, let's zoom out. Israel and Iran have been locked in a silent battle for years. Syria has become the chessboard, and innocent civilians are the pawns. Proxy groups like Hezbollah and various militias act as Iran's extended arms, while Israel responds with pinpoint airstrikes, covert sabotage missions, and cyber attacks. But unlike past years, the pace has accelerated. Each month brings new reports of strikes, counter-strikes, espionage operations, and weapons smuggling. And now, with the U.S. more openly involved, this is no longer a local issue, this is global. Russia plays its own role in the region, backing the Assad regime in Syria and maintaining complex relationships with both Iran and Israel. The United States, meanwhile, has reaffirmed its commitment to Israeli security, but also wants to avoid getting dragged into another Middle East war. And somewhere in all this, millions of innocent people try to live their lives. One of the most heart-wrenching consequences of this ongoing shadow war is the toll it takes on civilians. Many of these attacks, especially Iranian military bases, are deliberately placed near or underneath civilian infrastructure, hospitals, schools. Why? Because it makes retaliation complicated, dangerous, politically volatile. And yet, Israel has still launched strikes, arguing that the cost of inaction is greater. But this raises ethical questions. How many innocent lives are acceptable collateral damage in a war that neither side officially declares? Gaza is another flashpoint. Israel believes that Iran is funneling weapons and tactical support to Hamas, drones, munitions, intelligence, all part of a strategic alliance aimed at encircling Israel. This is why Israeli troops have begun mobilizing again near Gaza. Tanks, armored vehicles, special operations forces. All indicators point toward the possibility of a full-scale takeover of Gaza, or at least a massive offensive. Some officials are calling this inevitable. Others say it's already started. And just like that, the shadows become a spotlight. With every new development, the possibility of peace grows dimmer. And yet, even in this chaos, there are voices calling for restraint. Small efforts at backdoor diplomacy, quiet discussions between allies and enemies alike. Because the truth is, nobody wins in a regional war. Nobody. Yes, it may bring temporary strategic victories. Yes, it may shift the balance of power. But in the end, it's the families who pay the price. The children, the refugees, the wounded, the forgotten. And that's something we can't ignore. This conflict isn't just about rockets and revenge. It's about identity, history, survival, and power. Both nations carry deep-rooted narratives of injustice and defiance. Both see themselves as defenders of their people, and both are trapped in a cycle that seems impossible to break. But history tells us that even in the darkest of hours, diplomacy can find a way. Hope can survive, and peace can rise from the ashes of war. If people are willing to fight for it, that's where we come in. You and me, because it's easy to feel powerless when the headlines are filled with violence, war, and fear. It's easy to believe the world is falling apart. But here's the truth. Our voice matters. When we stay informed, when we engage with compassion, when we share the truth, without hate or bias, we become part of the solution. We light the path forward. And yes, there are reasons to hope. We've seen brave people across the Middle East stand up for peace. We've seen nations that were once bitter enemies build new alliances. And we've seen people, everyday people, refuse to give in to fear. So as we close this chapter, we leave you with this: even when war feels inevitable, peace is always possible. Even when leaders fail us, humanity can lead the way. And even when shadows rise, light is never far behind. You have the power to choose optimism over fear, knowledge over ignorance, unity over division. We're so grateful you joined us for this deep dive into one of the most important global stories of our time. If you're passionate about world affairs, justice, and the hope for peace, please consider subscribing, sharing, and being part of this global conversation. Your support fuels our mission, and together, we make sense of a complicated world. Until next time, stay safe, stay hopeful, and stay informed.